Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, ANITA.
Well, we are glad that you're on our show. You usually tell us so many good things, and I know you have some seminars coming up, too. What was the month that you weren't going to do seminars? Is it June?
June.
Right, because you're going to Israel.
Good memory, see?
Oh,
right.
I know you. It's going to be a wonderful thing that you're doing that. So let's get back to the Advance Directives, but I don't have the dates of the seminars with me since our May issue isn't out. I know you do. Do you want to give them now, or do you want to wait until?
I'll give the dates now, and then we can give it again later if we can.
Okay.
Okay. In May, we have 3 workshops. They're going to be held on Tuesday, May 22, in Palm Beach Gardens at the Gardens Marriott Hotel. We start at 1:30, and we go till 4 p.m. On Wednesday, May 23, we are in Port St. Lucie at 1:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Port St. Lucie Holiday Inn. And then on Thursday, May 24, we're at the Courtyard by Marriott in Boynton Beach, again from 1:30 to 4. We start on time. Sometimes we run a little over, but we do give you a break. Bring a sweater. We'll give you lots of information about what the laws are with regard to long-term care planning, what is available for Medicaid and how to become available for long-term care, either home care, assisted living, or nursing home. And we explain what's available and what the rules are and how you may become eligible even though you think you can't. What benefits are available for veterans and their widows for long-term care. And, of course, we talk about traditional estate planning issues. And today people think that estate planning is all about taxes. It's not. I got to tell you, it's about how screwed up your families are and how to take care of that properly, efficiently, what steps you can do to avoid the court system, and hopefully what steps you can do to avoid litigation amongst your loved ones.
Oh, my goodness, that's all important. So important. Oh, my. You know, Joe, you were wonderful to refer a friend of mine somewhere. And I just have to tell you, a good lawyer is like, you need a good lawyer when you need a lawyer. There are lawyers and there are lawyers, but a great lawyer like you will refer great lawyers. And so I thank you again.
Yeah, there's the one thing we know is we know what we know what we can do, and we know what we shouldn't try. We don't practice door law. You know what door law is, Anita?
No.
Whatever comes in the door, you say, "Oh, I can handle that."
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the joke in the legal profession. The lawyer has, somebody comes in, the lawyer says, "Oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do that." It doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
I can do that.
Yeah.
And this is an era of specialization. And specialization, we talk even in our workshop, how a simple will can lose the homestead protection from creditors. How people can blow that stuff because they don't know it. We don't do a lot of things because we know what we shouldn't be doing. And when clients of ours come to us or people call us and say, "I have this problem," we say, "We don't do this. Here's where if we have a resource, we say, here's where you can go. And this is what you need. But we can't do that." So we always act as a resource for our clients as well.
Yeah, I know. You've really been wonderful, and I do have to thank you again. But let's get back. I was thinking about it because if people did the right advance directives, they probably wouldn't need some of the litigators that people wound up having.
Well, this has to do with health care versus estate what happens when you die. Advance directives are documents that authorize that indicate who you want to make what decisions and when. And there are, and what we recommend and what we tell our people now. First of all, everybody knows about the living will. And sometimes I'll say, well, let's see your health care documents. Let me see the documents you have. And the person pulls out a will that they did in 1992 and a living will that they did in 1992. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the living will is a document that talks about termination of life supports if you're terminally ill, end-stage condition, or persistent vegetative state. And generally speaking, it says, in the opinion of the Florida form says, in the opinion of 2 doctors and my medical agent, do not prolong my dying process. That's not put a pillow over my head if I'm having a bad day. It's don't prolong my dying process. That, out of the 2 major healthcare documents, is the less important one. The more important advance directive is the healthcare surrogate or the healthcare power of attorney, who can make medical decisions for you if you can't. And that covers the gamut. That covers if you're unconscious. That covers if you have dementia. That covers if you have Alzheimer's. That covers if you're in surgery and under anesthesia. That covers if you're in the hospital and you've been so medicated that you can't make decisions. Who can make them for you? That's a critical instrument. And under Florida law, because we try to avoid litigation, the law says it's got to be one at a time. So it's got to be my spouse, followed by my son, followed by my daughter followed by my son, and my spouse is too cognitively impaired to make decisions. And by the way, the number of documents where people come in with this, where they've still named their spouse first when their spouse has dementia, is frightening. And I said, your kids are going to have to prove that their father or mother has dementia before the doctor will listen to them next. Clean this up. And you also need, and we include it right in our healthcare surrogate, a HIPAA release. That's a document that, under the federal privacy laws, lets people get your privileged medical communications so they can properly make decisions. They can talk to the doctors. They can talk in the emergency room. They can deal with the pharmacist. They can deal with the health insurance company so they know what the hell is going on. And those are critical documents. Now, once those are done, most people think they're done and they're not. You thought they were done. Most people, when they get that, do you know what they do with the documents?
Yeah, they put them in their drawer.
They put them in a drawer. What don't they do?
They don't keep them up.
They don't give the
Right.
people who have the decision-making authority copies. They don't discuss their philosophy of life and death. They don't discuss what their standard for quality of life is. Because most people don't want to live at all cost. They want to live a certain quality of life. Now, we all know that our standards for quality of life diminish. My uncle used to say, if I can't drive, shoot me. Okay? Then he got macular degeneration. And fortunately, he was amongst those with macular degeneration who had the good sense not to drive anymore. And he didn't say, shoot me. He said, I need somebody to take me someplace. And he would, he still enjoyed food, company, family, love, nurturance. And then as he continued to have other health issues, he found value in the other things that were more important to him. So you have to have that ongoing conversation. And although if you're designating your children, they have a tendency not to want to do the conversation, you say, yeah, we owe it to you. These are hard decisions. If I'm in a condition where I can't decide for myself, I want to talk about what I'm looking for in quality of life. And sometimes when people find these conversations difficult, one of the best things to do is deal with real-life situations. Instead of sitting there fabricating incidents and talking just generally, say, you remember when Aunt Mary had her stroke?
Yeah.
And how her kids had her tube fed for 2 years till she died, and she couldn't even open her eyes half the time? That's not a quality of life for me. I understand if I have a stroke, I want you to see what you can do to get a picture of whether I'm going to recover. I want to see what that recovery means. I can, when Aunt Sarah had her stroke, she ended up in a wheelchair. You know what? And she had a damn good life in that wheelchair. Not as good as she would have liked if she could have been trotting around, but I wouldn't mind that lifestyle.
Well, that's interesting.
And have those, no, but I'm saying just have those conversations.
Right.
Have those conversations. And public figures, the same thing. You can talk about public figures who are showing signs of decline, and the performers that go out and do their, Glenn Campbell had his tour, whatever it is, start to talk to them. The other thing we do with our clients now, because health care is so important, and what do we know about your kids? They hate paper, and they're certainly not going to be carrying your health care surrogate in their wallet, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So what we do now with our clients is we give them a flash drive, a thumb drive of their documents, and tell them to email it to their kids so the kids can have access to it in their smartphones. And your kids could be skiing in Vail or the Alps or at Disney, whatever they are, and if they get a call that you're sick, they can access that document on their cell phone, hitting their smartphone, hitting their mail, and forward that to the hospital or the doctor so they can talk. And we tell our clients to even do it to themselves so they can access it. And have these discussions and recognize these discussions are moving targets.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
you know what? I have to just
be
say
honest about the people you've named.
Right. But it's interesting, Joe, if people are traveling, they're not with their kids or anything, and something happens to them, an emergency, it's a very difficult situation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no life is perfect. You can keep cards who to contact in an emergency and stuff like that so that they get to these people. Pretty much, most people, if they're in a car crash and they're in Florida and they're in a car crash somewhere, somebody will eventually get to the right people to deal with them. I mean, sometimes it takes a little time. But most of these events are not, fortunately for most of us, emergency cataclysmic events. Most of the sickness takes its toll and people are aware. So you got to get those documents. The other document for health care, so we have the living will, we have the health surrogate or the health power of attorney, either separate with a HIPAA release, that's the doctors can talk to them, or a HIPAA release built into it, which is the way we do it. And then some people want what's known as a do not resuscitate order. And that is a serious document because that says if I have a cardiopulmonary event, do not give me CPR. And I have a living will. If I have a coronary, I want them thumping the hell out of my chest. I do want CPR.
Right.
I don't think I'm at the end of the road.
Right.
Some of my clients because of their infirmities, their lifestyle, they don't want it. I mean, if this person, and this is not a person I know, I'm making this up, so I'll even age the person more. If you're a 102-year-old widow with osteoporosis, well, I don't want any superstitious person
Right.
to say I'm talking about her.
Okay.
With osteoporosis and arthritis, and you weigh 82 pounds, even though you appear to be in good health, you may say, you know what? If I have a cardiopulmonary event, I don't want EMTs cracking every rib in my body to bring me back so that I can have fractured ribs till I die. I mean, so it's not always people who are dying that want to do not resuscitate, but they've got to understand the difference because they think that a living will is a do not resuscitate, and fortunately it's not. There has to be a conscious decision about that, and actually it's a document that your doctor has to sign. And most people don't sign those. The healthcare surrogate can sign it for somebody. They can sign it on their behalf because you're giving them the authority to make medical decisions that you can't. So this is important stuff. And elder lawyers always talk about this, whereas we're always talking about life decisions. Death is a separate problem in terms of who gets what, who's in charge, how do we allocate it, what's fair, what's fair is equal, fair is fair, not equal sometimes, and what's the effect of those distributions. But the healthcare decisions and who will make them is an important decision.
Joe, I'm going to stop you because
process.
Joe, what I want to do to scare people to get this done, I think we have to be a little stronger. So this is my question, or this is my suggestion. Let's just say that nobody has anything, and they need health care. Tell us what happens if without any documents, go through it.
First of all, it depends. There is a Florida statute that says who can make your decisions for you if you can't, and you did not do the document. The first person is your court-appointed guardian if you have been declared incompetent by the court. Then it's your spouse. Then the statute says your adult children. Then we start to go down the chain to siblings, and they go down the chain. So there's a list of people who get to make it. That's number one. Number two, the federal privacy law doesn't authorize these people to get information. There's no automatic. So depending on who you're dealing with, you may find yourself in a position that if you didn't give somebody the right to get your medical information, unless they're a court-appointed guardian where the court will give the guardian the right to get the information, your spouse may not be able to get that information. Your your children, your parents, or after children, it's your parents. And that whole list goes down. So you could find yourself very frustrated. And if it's your children, they may have philosophical disagreements over what's appropriate. In fact, I was telling somebody a story last night about a time that I had to testify in front of a hospital bioethics committee when two daughters were disputing as to what was the appropriate treatment for their mother who was dying.
So how did that go?
This was a lady who had signed a living will, but the daughters did not couldn't agree as to whether to terminate her, and she had a peg tube in her. She was being tube fed, and there were, whenever people are tube fed, it's more than tube fed. Remember, you don't just eat, you defecate. And there were issues with she was just when they'd have to clean her after she defecated, she had open bed sores, so she was getting acid in those wounds. She was burning. They would push her over it.
Oh, God.
Finally, the hospital said, and the one daughter said, "You can't stop my mother from living," and the other said, "You got to stop my mother from suffering." And the lady had dementia and was semi-conscious because of all the medications. She was asleep with her, but she was in pain whenever they tried to clean her up. And she was in pain beforehand because of the acid in the open bed suit. I mean, just crazy. And the hospital board finally decided that the next time they had to remove the PEG tube, which was 5 days later, based upon what they calculated, they would not replace it. The daughter said she was going to file a lawsuit in federal court. And they said, that's fine. If we get a court order, we will replace it, but otherwise we won't. And the mother had the courtesy and goodness to die before the PEG tube had to be removed and before the lawsuit was filed. But those are the kinds of things you want to avoid. And there is no question that both daughters loved their mother. I mean, and by the way, if we go back to the Terry Schiavo case,
yep.
If we all remember Terry Schiavo, where
yes.
her husband wanted to terminate her life supports, and her parents were suing, saying he was mean, he was evil, and the reason they did it, she had no documents. But when she was incompetent as a result of the injury she suffered, to hire the lawyer, her husband became her court-appointed guardian. So that put him in the driver's seat. And they were fighting that he was bad, he was hurting her, he was doing all this other stuff, because the only way they could trump her husband is becoming the guardian. So you just want to avoid that and have these conversations. And let the kids know that there's a law that limits who can do it, and let them know where you're coming from, because it's difficult. And sometimes some kids feel very strongly and don't want to see their parents go, or they have guilt. And some people want to fight till where there's life, there's hope. And I get that too. If that's what you want, make sure you pick the one who will do that. I had a client who had 5 children. 4 of them had converted to Jehovah's Witnesses. They did not believe in medical intervention the way he did. So he had to pick only one child and said to the other 4, I love you, but we have a philosophical disagreement over what's best for my health and what intervention I want. And I don't want you to have to supersede your religious beliefs to do what I want. And that's also true with very religious Jewish people, the same thing. They have strong beliefs about not terminating life. And depending upon their philosophy, pulling the PEG tube, as was the case that I was talking about with those 2 sisters, they deemed even the non-replacement of it would be the termination of life and intervening with what God wills. So you have to have those conversations with your kids. And I have a lot of clients who have very religious Orthodox Jewish children who are obviously not listening to us this morning, who they know they don't want their child could not defy their religious beliefs to do what the parent wants for health care.
Yep. Well, I'm
and
glad
these are
that
important documents. What happens to your money is important, and we make sure, by the way, that the power of attorney and the trust coordinates to the extent that if you leave one person in charge of your health care and another person in charge of your money, that the person in charge of the money has to do with the money what the person in charge of the health care does. So by example, suppose you say, my daughter is the compassionate one She will do everything possible to keep me alive. She will pay for round-the-clock nurses, and she would want me to be taken care of, and money is no object. And you name her in charge of the health care. And your son is in charge of the money. We want to make sure that other document says, although he's charge of the money, if the healthcare surrogate says, do this for mom and we're going to have 24-hour nurses, he's not going to say, I'm not writing the checks.
No. Yeah, that's really important. That's a very good point. I haven't thought about what you just said before.
I learned that from one of my clients over 20 years ago.
Huh.
She said my son would just refuse to pay the bill.
Right.
And that's when I added the clause that said you got to do what my health surrogate says with regard to money. You can decide what assets are spent, but not whether to spend it.
Joe, well, let's talk about your seminars again. I don't want to run out of time. Will you go through that again, please?
Okay, we're going to be doing them in Palm Beach Gardens, Tuesday, May 22nd at 1:30 p.m., Wednesday, May 23rd in Port St. Lucie, and Thursday, May 24 in Boynton Beach, 1:30 to 4. If you go to my website, KARPLAW, KARPLAW.com, you'll see the schedule. If you call up and want more information, 1-800-893-9911. You don't need a reservation, but if you have some questions and you want to come. It's an open seminar. You're free to come in and learn. And if you come, if we think we're going to offer people a free consultation with one of our lawyers, we have 5 of us, 6 counting me, and if we think we can help you, you can get a free consultation to find out the answers to your questions, to have your estate plan reviewed to see if it still does what you want. We are now been doing these continuously since April 1994. We're doing less and less, even though there's more lawyers, because we have enough people coming to our door, and our existing clients, we have long-term relationships with them, so we're there when they need us.
Yeah. Well, I must say it's pretty exciting that you have been doing this for so long, Joe, and I want everyone to know, and I'm just going to give that. I know you've given the information out how to get in touch with you, but you can get on Joe's blog. You can just trust Joe Karp. That's KARPLAW.com, KARPLAW.com. And Joe, thank you. It's always such a pleasure to have you on our show. I think you gave some very good advice, as usual, this morning. And I will talk to you soon. If I don't talk to you before you go to Israel, have a very safe, wonderful time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Have a good day, everybody.
Yes.